Let us read from 1 Kings chapter 21, verses 1 to 15. Now Naboth the Jezreelite had a vineyard in Jezreel, beside the palace of Ahab, king of Samaria. And after this Ahab said to Naboth, "Give me your vineyard, that I may have it for a vegetable garden, because it is near my house, and I will give you a better vineyard for it. Or if it seems good to you, I will give you its value in money." But Naboth said to Ahab, "The Lord forbid that I should give you the inheritance of my fathers." And Ahab went into his house vexed and sullen because of what Naboth the Jezreelite had said to him. For he had said, "I will not give you the inheritance of my fathers." And he lay down on his bed and turned away his face and would eat no food. But Jezebel his wife came to him and said to him, Why is your spirit so vexed that you eat no food?" And he said to her, "Because I spoke to Naboth the Jezreelite and said to him, 'Give me your vineyard for money, or else, if it please you, I will give you another vineyard for it.' And he answered, 'I will not give you my vineyard.' And Jezebel his wife said to him, 'Do you now govern Israel? Arise and eat bread, and let your heart be cheerful. I will give you the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite.' So she wrote letters in Ahab's name and sealed them with his seal, and sent the letters to the elders and the elders who lived with Naboth in the city. And she wrote in the letters, 'Proclaim a fast and set Naboth at the head of the people, and set two worthless men opposite him, and let him bring a charge against him, saying, You have cursed God and the king. Then take him out and stone him to death.' And the men of his city, the elders and the leaders who lived in the city, did as Jezebel had sent word to them. As it was written in the letters that she had sent to them, they proclaimed a fast and set Naboth at the head of the people. And the two worthless men came in and sat opposite him. And the worthless men brought a charge against Naboth in the presence of the people, saying, 'Naboth cursed God and the king.' So they took him outside the city and stoned him to death with stones. Then they sent to Jezebel, saying, 'Naboth has been stoned, he is dead.' As soon as Jezebel heard that Naboth had been stoned and was dead, Jezebel said to Ahab, 'Rise, take possession of the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite, which he refused to give you for money, for Naboth is not alive but dead.' And as soon as Ahab heard that Naboth was dead, Ahab arose to go down to the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite to take possession of it. Out of the 10 commandments God gave Moses on Mount Sinai, one stands out as impossible to keep without a reverent fear of God in one's heart. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male servant, or his female servant, or his ox, or his donkey, or anything that is your neighbor's. Exodus 20, verse 17. When Moses reiterates this law in Deuteronomy 5, verse 21, he specifically mentions the neighbor's field. Covetousness often begins with our eyes, and we see what others have and long for it. Unlike other sins, it is invisible to human judgment, as no court can prosecute someone for desiring what belongs to another. Yet God sees the heart, and he holds us accountable for even the sins that are hidden within. King Ahab's story in this chapter is a chilling example of how covetousness, if unchecked, can lead to devastating consequences. Although Ahab had authority and wealth as the king of Israel, he still longed for the vineyard of his neighbor, Naboth. This desire, unchecked by godly fear, led to a series of dark decisions that eventually destroyed Ahab and his lineage. As Israel's king, Ahab was supposed to keep a personal copy of God's law, which included the commandment against coveting. However, instead of honoring this law, He allowed his desire for Naboth's vineyard to consume him. Ahab was not only wicked, but weak, unwilling to directly take what he wanted or face Naboth's resistance. When Naboth, a righteous man, refused to sell his inheritance, Ahab could have respected his choice. Instead, he went home sulking and allowed Jezebel, his ruthless wife, to handle the situation. Jezebel, a woman without moral restraint, seized the opportunity to fulfill her husband's desires. She forged letters in the king's name, misused his authority, and involved the city's elders in a scheme to bring about Naboth's death. She defiled the name of God by calling a fast and then arranged for false accusations and witness to charge Naboth with blasphemy, a crime punishable by death. The city's elders, weak and subservient, sided with Jezebel instead of standing for truth. Proverb 28:4 warns us, if you have no regard for the law, you are on the side of the wicked. But if you obey it, you are against them. The actions of Ahab, Jezebel, and the elders reveal the corrupt spiritual climate of Israel during that time. The prophet Micah speaks of such covetousness in Micah chapter 2 verse 2, where he laments, they covet fields and seize them, and houses and take them. They defraud people of their homes. They rob them of their inheritance. Covetousness had spread throughout the land, and it often led to theft and oppression. In this case, it led to murder. Naboth was not only wrongfully accused, but murdered, with indications in 2 Kings chapter 9 verse 26 suggesting that his sons were killed as well, ensuring there were no heirs left to claim his inheritance. This made it easy for Ahab to take possession of the vineyard without remorse or a second thought, oblivious to the gravity of his actions. Just as David attempted to conceal his motives in arranging Uriah's death, Jezebel had masked her own schemes in Naboth's murder. However, God was not deceived. Psalm 37:13 declares, the Lord laughs at the wicked, for he knows their day is coming. God saw everything, and he sent his prophet Elijah to confront Ahab. Even though Jezebel orchestrated Naboth's death, Ahab was held accountable. As king and husband, he bore the responsibility for leading his household and nation in righteousness. Upon seeing Elijah, Ahab greeted him as his enemy, forgetting that Elijah had been instrumental in bringing the people back to God and ending the famine that had plagued the land. His words revealed more about his own heart than they did about Elijah's character. Elijah, without hesitation, condemned Ahab's sin of murder and theft and pronounced God's judgment upon him and on his household. This chapter, verse 25 and 26, sums up Ahab's life of wickedness. There was never anyone like Ahab, who sold himself to do evil in the eyes of the Lord, urged on by Jezebel, his wife. He behaved in the vilest manner by going after idols, like the Amorites the Lord drove out before Israel. Interestingly, when Ahab heard Elijah's pronouncement of judgment, he showed a rare moment of humility. Instead of reacting with anger, he tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, and fasted in mourning. God noticed this display of repentance and showed mercy, delaying the full judgment until the reign of Ahab's son. This reveals God's willingness to show mercy to those who humble themselves, even at the 11th hour. Ahab's story illustrates the destructive power of covetousness, of wanting more. Naboth and his sons lost their lives, and Ahab's family suffered a tragic end. Jezebel's unrestrained actions corrupted others, inciting them to participate in her sinful schemes. This one sin of covetousness led to forgery, slander, lies, theft, and murder. Jesus taught that loving one's neighbor as oneself is second only to loving God. Matthew 22:39. If Ahab had genuinely loved his neighbor, he would not have coveted Naboth's vineyard. True love for God and others is the only antidote to covetousness. God has promised to provide for all our needs, as we read in Philippians chapter 4:19. Yet, covetousness blinds us to his provision and leads us into destructive patterns of sin. As we reflect on this account, let us remember that God looks at the heart. He sees our hidden desires and covetous thoughts, and he calls us to love others purely and sincerely. May we learn from Ahab's tragic example and guard our hearts, for a man's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions. God bless.